A recent poll from Abacus Data found that some 900,000 Canadians, or 3% of the population, adopted a pet during the pandemic. And that means there are a lot more people and animals about to make big transitions when normal activities start being a part of our lives again, including long stretches of time away from home. How will they and we manage? Let's ask. In Barrhaven, just south of the nation's capital, Sarah Horrocks, a public servant and pet owner. In Uxbridge, Ontario, Phil Nichols, registered veterinarian technician and chief operation officer for the Toronto Humane Society. And in Woodbridge, Ontario, Monica Suds, vice president of Action Volunteers for Animals. Hi to you all.
Hello.
Morning.
Hello.
I am so excited we're talking about this because I was one of those, our family was one of those families that adopted a puppy during the pandemic. Phil, I wanted to start with you. Have adoptions increased at the Toronto Humane Society during the pandemic?
Adoption interest has certainly increased throughout the pandemic, but the total number of adoptions hasn't increased for us since the pandemic hit. But that's really been a result of a lot of intake diversion activities and work to keep pets with their families. So there hasn't been as many animals in the shelter looking for adoption.
And Monica, has Action Volunteers for Animals seen an increase in rescues?
We have seen an actual increase in adoptions as well. Last year, we actually adopted the most we've ever adopted at about 2021 cats were adopted.
And Sarah, you adopted some pets during the past year. How come?
I did. So we moved into a different home that allowed pets. And so my children really wanted to have cats and dogs back in our lives. So we lost our pets a few years ago. They were just old and we had to have them put down. So we adopted 2 sibling kittens from the Ottawa Kitten Rescue. And then I adopted a puppy I got her from Kijiji. And then I just recently got a new dog who was rehomed to me.
It sounds like you have a very busy household. It took us about a year to find our puppy. What was the process like for you? Was it hard?
It was actually not hard for me because a colleague found the puppy for me on Kijiji, but she did an extensive, exhaustive search, and we wound up having to drive almost all the way to Sudbury, so 7.5 hours north one way in order to get Shuby.
Phil, I don't know how many hours I spent on different rescues, looking at the Toronto Humane Society, trying to find our puppy. Besides the cute videos and, the love that they give you, what are some of the benefits that animals have on our health?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think the benefits are so much greater than what a lot of people think of. And there's been work done by the Human Animal Bond Research Institute recently, which is gaining a fair bit of notoriety, that shows all of the positive health benefits that bringing a pet into your life can have, anywhere from lowering blood pressure, helping children with autism cope better, help them get more vocal and interactive. If pets are in the household as children are growing up, it helps boost their immune response and build their tolerance against other allergies, lowering symptoms of emotional duress in people as well. So I think that the benefits of having a pet and welcoming one into your family are so immeasurable. And I think that the key one that everyone can agree on, it's that human animal bond, and it's the love and the passion that you can share with them.
It seems like for us anyway, we moved into a new neighborhood during the pandemic, and with physical distancing measures in place. I don't know about you all, but I've found myself to be very awkward around people now. I don't know where to stand. I'm just kind of like this. But with our puppy, it's opened up an opportunity for us to meet our neighbors and to chat. But we've also been seeing a lot of headlines that mention that a lot of people who adopted their pets during the pandemic are now surrendering them to animal shelters. Phil, is that the case?
It's not the case. And we've seen a lot of headlines on that. I mean, certainly there's people that are still needing to surrender or looking to surrender for different reasons. But all of the data across Canada and across North America completely refute, that message that animals are being returned to shelters in mass droves. And in fact, our average return rates and the return rates that we're seeing across Canada and across the US are much lower than what they were pre-pandemic. So I think there's been a lot of positive movement that's happened over the last year and a half on the animal welfare front.
That's surprising to me. Monica, I see you nodding your head.
Yes. We have also not seen any significant increase in returns. In fact, they're down from 2 years ago. 2 years ago, we had about 20 more returns than we have over the last 2 years. So people are keeping their pets.
And Sarah, for you, have you considered surrendering your pets?
So I had to work quite a bit with Shubi. She had some difficulties in her behavior, and we consulted with a number of people because rehoming was a real possibility if she was going to be aggressive. And thankfully, we were able to work her through that. But that is the reason why I have Parker today. Is he was rehomed from another family who couldn't deal with his behaviors. He was biting. There was a young child in the family, and it just wasn't working out. So because I had that experience recently with Shubi, we were able to work with Parker in the same way, and thankfully it's been going well. We've had him for about a month right now.
It's like I mentioned before, it sounds like you have a lot on your plate. I love that name, Shubi, by the way.
Thank you.
What drives you to have another pet, have a pet that's being rehomed when you already have so much responsibility?
Well, so I have 4 children. In addition to having 4 pets, I have 4 children, 3 of whom live at home with me. The youngest is 17. So I have a lot of help, which has been great. And, adding Parker to the mix with Shubi allows us to have them together. So when you talk about separation anxiety and maybe the return back to work, well, we have a lot of people in this house who can pitch in and help, but also the 2 puppies have their crates kind of end to end, a little bit separated, but they take comfort in knowing that the other one is there.
Our puppy was left alone for the first time this week, and we came home. I have a plant on top of her crate. We came home, and that plant was no longer on top of the crate. That plant was on the ground. She did not like being left alone, and I think it was maybe an hour or 2. But I want to read you something journalist S.E. Smith wrote in the Washington Post about pet surrender. They write, "The shame around surrendering pets makes people feel like failures for something that may already be extremely traumatic, whether it involves tearing a young child away from a beloved pet or separating someone from a companion of a decade or more. Treating it with such stigma can encourage people to abandon pets, hastily rehome them, or remain in dangerous situations because they don't want to leave their animals." Monica, when we think about stigma, what role does stigma play when people consider abandoning their pets?
Well, I think it's a real thing. I think that people sometimes have anxiety around having to rehome their pets. I would rather have a cat. We primarily deal with cats returned to us rather than something happen. I know that sometimes some organizations, some shelters, rescues will ask for a surrender fee. Some people feel that they can't afford the surrender fee, so then they choose other options, including rehoming pets on Kijiji, which we would never support. You don't really know, and I think people are never able to accurately screen people on Kijiji, and you really don't know what the outcome of that would be. So I would hope that we can support, I think most shelters and rescues try to support pet owners so that there isn't that shame, and take those pets back so that we can rehome them successfully.
And Phil, I think a lot of people can figure out how to adopt a pet, but I don't know if a lot of people know how to maybe give them up. And I've never actually thought about stigma and the role that it plays around people making those kind of decisions, hard decisions. So in your view, what role does stigma play when people do have to abandon their pets?
Yeah, I think stigma plays a huge role in it, and I think it highlights an issue that, as an industry, we've kind of been blind or allowed to continue throughout the last couple decades. And when we're looking at stigma, we're talking about pet abandonment, and I think even within that language we can see a bit of stigma being applied, because it's not always just that they're being abandoned. People in general are really trying to do the right thing, and they're trying to do what's best for the pet and their family, and they don't want the animal to suffer. And that's an area where the animal welfare industry has been going through a big shift. And I think you'll start to see a lot of different rescue agencies and groups starting to figure out, what are we doing wrong that we're not supporting the community well enough, that is leading people to need to give up their pets or need to make that decision to shatter that human animal bond or break that relationship that may exist between the pet and their family, and in the different family members. And I think that's where we have a lot of room to grow and to improve. Uh, the comments that we were talking about, and separation anxiety, and how are the animals going to cope, and if you're away for the first time, and how that's all impacting the animal. And I think that just highlights an area of animal welfare and care and support where a lot of work needs to be done to help improve and ensure that those supports and that resource and that information and the correct knowledge is available to the community and to the individuals that are trying to do the right thing and really want to improve that relationship and make sure that the animal and the family, and they just work better together and well together. And there's a lot of misinformation out of there, so cutting through a little bit of that clutter is very much needed right now.
And Sarah, I think when we were looking for our puppy, we really wanted to adopt because we keep hearing the messaging, adopt, don't shop. You said that you got your puppy on Kijiji. Did you wrestle with that decision?
Yes, I did. We adopted our kittens through Ottawa Kitten Rescue, and I really looked at all of the rescues that I could find in the area for puppies. But at the same time, as I mentioned, my colleague was looking on Kijiji, and everything just kind of fell into place. So I did struggle with that quite a bit because in the past I had adopted pets from humane societies and Nova Scotia SPCA when we lived in Nova Scotia. But it just wasn't available to me at this time, and we really wanted a dog so badly, and we were actually very happy how it turned out.
And Monica, are there other ways for people who might find themselves in a situation where they no longer can take care of their loved pet? Is there another way for them to avoid surrender as an option?
Absolutely. I think that there are many shelters and rescues, and we do it for sure. We try to sometimes contact the owner and work through some of those issues if there are issues that can be resolved. Sometimes you have, some issues that really don't ultimately mean that the cat has to be surrendered. So we will try to support them through that. We'll have ongoing conversations with them, send them reading material if they need that. Not everybody wants to surrender their animal, but I think that sometimes they need support to know that they don't need to do that. Sometimes people are faced with financial issues. Sometimes there's support around getting that. So if we can support them and maintain that animal in the home, then that's probably the best outcome for everyone.
Phil, I want to ask you that same question. Are there other ways to avoid separation, to avoid surrender as an option?
Absolutely, and I think highlighting that challenge has been a huge key part of organizationally what Toronto Humane Society has been working to overcome. And in the last 12 months, similar to programs that Monica was just alluding to, Toronto Humane Society released and launched a program that we call our Pet Parent Support Network, which is available for access on our website. And the primary focus of all of that is to connect individuals that are experiencing some kind of challenge or issue, and they're looking for support. And they're not quite sure, do I need to go to this place? Where do I find information? Where do I find support? And that's where our group of volunteers is working with a lot of resources and documents and information to help guide people towards the best solution for them, and sometimes that may be that surrender may be in the best interest of that pet and that family at that time, but there are so many different alternatives and options. And trying to figure all that out as an individual is challenging. And how do you know what you're seeing on Google is correct? And that's one of the main reasons we wanted to launch this program, so that we can ensure people are getting the right information that's credible. It's been screened by the experts, whether that's our veterinarians, our behaviorists, our certified trainers, to make sure that people are getting the right information when they need it to avoid surrender at all possible costs. And it is really a big key piece of where our organization is going, and I think where you're going to see the industry go as well.
I think one of the things that I wasn't really aware of was pet insurance and trying to find those little details that you need. Our girl needs to be spayed in a few months, and trying to figure out where how much it's actually very costly. Sarah, for you, what do you think has been the most important lesson that you have learned during this experience, and one that you'd like to share with people who might be considering doing what you're doing?
Well, first of all, it takes a lot of effort and training. And the training primarily was for me because a dog knows how to be a really good dog, but you have to want to be a really good owner and learn about each dog and their personality and work with that. And so it takes time and effort, but it is so worth it. And one of the best things we have found that you mentioned was the community that you get to know on another level because of the pets. So we've gotten to know our neighbors, we've gotten to know people at the dog park, we've gotten to know, I mean, I don't know the majority of the people's names, but I can tell you all of their pets' names. And it's just been a wonderful way for us to not only connect with our community, but also for our mental health and our physical health, getting out every day, walking the trails. It's just been wonderful.
And Monica, what would you like for people to know if they are considering taking on adoption?
Well, I think that they need to always consider which pet is right for them. You can adopt a cat, but there are cats with different personalities, and people have different personalities. So I think it's about finding the right fit. If you find that this cat is not a good fit, then it's about finding which cat will be a good fit for you. It's not about giving up after that first try. So we have people that fill out applications, and they might visually see a cat because of pandemic where we've not been in stores, but they might see a photo of a cat, and we provide bios, and they might think it's a good fit. So what we would suggest to them is, this cat might not be the best fit for you given your level of experience, etc. But we would suggest another cat or another animal for them. That might be a better fit, because I always kind of say, if the owner is happy, then the cat is happy, and they're going to be committed to taking the best care of that cat.
And Phil, I'm going to use a word that I swear I won't use after the pandemic, is the word pivot. We've been hearing a lot of things have had to change for your profession. When we go to the vet, we now stay outside, and then someone comes out and brings our puppy inside. What's it been like for you in your profession during this past year and a half with all this demand?
Yeah, I think the industry has just seen such a big pivot and shift over that period of time, and through the pandemic. It's caused a lot of direct frontline service providers to try to adjust their protocols and their systems to work in a digital and a virtual environment, and that's really done. It's done a lot of good, I think, for service delivery and removal of barriers to access of care, especially individuals who are burdened by geographic challenges and limitations and that sort of thing, so that they can have that virtual teletime with a doctor or an RVT. But it's also equally put a lot of pressure on the industry and on the system, and the work and the adjustments have caused a lot of stress and burnout within the team. And I think it's highlighting a weakness within the industry that has been growing for the last little while. And
What's that weakness?
There's a national shortage of veterinarians and veterinary professional support staff across Canada, and with the growing number of animals being welcomed into homes and becoming part of family members, many more people are looking to build and establish a veterinary client-patient relationship, and there's just a lot of barriers standing in the way of access there. There's cost, but there's also the limitations on staff and availability of veterinarians. And based on internal reports that Toronto Humane Society has done, and we've been looking at this for quite some time over the last little while, our estimates put roughly anywhere between 40 to 50% of domestic pet cats and dogs across Canada don't have a current ongoing relationship with a veterinarian, and that's really concerning for us. And if we can't collectively get together and start addressing those challenges and those issues, animal suffering is something we're going to see, and that's people's capacity to, not because they're being negligent, but because they can't actually find anywhere to access the resources or the support and the care that they need, for a number of reasons. And that's going to be a big push and a focus for our organization as we go forward, for sure.
Why is that important for all of us to consider? Because I think if we were talking about doctors for people, it might be seen as more of an urgent issue. But why is it an important issue for us to consider when it comes to our pets?
Healthcare and access to healthcare is a huge issue, and I think you mentioned earlier the pet insurance, right? And it's something not everybody thinks about. And you can look back, 10 years ago. 10 years ago, putting some money away every month instead of paying into an insurance plan, may have covered you for an emergency visit, but it's not going to cut it anymore. The average, an emergency bill can run you anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. And people aren't expecting or anticipating that when they go up, and that's what causes a lot of people to need to make decisions. Can I afford to provide this care? Can I afford to save my pet? And that is a awful decision to need to make, and it's one that we see owners struggling and burdened and challenged with, and it's not something that the industry should allow. And I think animal welfare as a whole, our stakeholders, we need to work on solutions to help overcome that. I think pet insurance is an amazing tool to help overcome that. That's why it's there. In Canada, I think it's really important that we have that conversation, because we have universal access to healthcare. Our pets don't. And ensuring that we work to overcome that is a big challenge that's going to take a lot of focus and time and energy and effort.
Do you recommend that people get pet insurance?
I absolutely recommend that individuals get pet insurance, even if it's just an emergency plan. You don't need to get the all-encompassing, it's going to take care of your annual visits and that sort of thing. But emergency health insurance is absolutely essential, and we recommend every single pet owner get in on the plan. And if you can get them when they're young, and as you work through, your premiums can be a little bit cheaper, and it's going to go a long way. And I've certainly been on the other end of in the past, needing to go to the emergency room. My wife's dog, before we were married, he wound up with his stomach twisted, and he needed emergency surgery, and his bill was I think around $7,000 plus follow-up care. And unless you have, a bank account with money where you're comfortable just sitting with $10,000 or $12,000 there for your pet, to cover those unexpected accidents or emergencies, you're going to have a hard time. And I don't think anybody that has a member of their family wants to be in a position where they're making a decision where they need to say goodbye to a loved one because they don't have enough money to provide that care. And in my past, I've been working as a registered veterinary technician or in the field for over a decade now. And I've had to sit in rooms with families as they're making that challenging decision, and that it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking for the staff. It's heartbreaking for the families. And we need to communicate and get the information out there about what is needed to support solutions that don't result in that decision needing to be made for that reason.
Sarah, I saw you nodding.
Yeah, I mean, I was on the fence about pet insurance, and I haven't made the decision yet. But I think after this conversation, I will be researching the pet insurance for my four.
We only have a few minutes left, but Sarah, when you go back to work, do you have plans on how your pets are going to be cared for?
Well, I'm lucky enough at this point that I'm not considered essential, so I won't be going back to work for the foreseeable future. When I do go back to work, I expect it won't be for another couple of years, actually. And at that point, the animals should be good enough to stay in their crates, and I will make arrangements to have somebody come during the day. We have we belong to a fenced park where they offer somebody to come in, pick up your pet, and take them for walks. And so I'd be doing something like that.
And Monica, I'll give you the last minute. As the pandemic starts to wind down and people are returning to work, to what extent do you worry about them having separation anxiety? I know cats are very independent.
Cats are pretty good. I think I have some cats of my own. I have some cats of my own for sure. And they spend a lot more time with me when I'm working from home, that's for sure. But I think that, especially cats, that's why I have two dogs as well, but when they die, and they're 16, when they die, I'm not going to be getting any more dogs because I just think that they're more work than my lifestyle allows. So I have several cats and I think that they're going to adjust just fine. And I think that's the benefit for me. And for my cats, they have a litter box accessible for them at all times. And that's why I also support adoption of multiple pets, like multiple cats, so that when you're home, that's one thing, but when you go back to work, they have each other to play with and spend time with.
Thank you all for so much. I could talk to you about this for another 30 minutes. We really do appreciate your insights this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.